Hi, good afternoon. So you may have heard of Magnus, the king of JIRA in Stockholm. I have him here for a short interview to understand how he views JIRA issue management and how we can help him towards his continuous delivery efforts. So I'll start straight away with some questions. Why is it important to test defects again and keep information up to date on JIRA issues?
Well, that's a good question. Thanks, Tim. When you're testing a defect in the team environment, committed to dev core, there's a whole bunch of changes going on. And when the release branch is cut, that's the point where we have a more set scope for the release, and there's fewer changes going on. So testing it again and then accepting it in JIRA is key to make sure that the Nordics won't experience that same bug in the release. I know that we're becoming really good at this, accepting all the defects going in, and it's something that we should try to keep up.
Cool. Well, I think you've actually answered my second question as well. It's really good. So about how we need open defects retested when the release branch is cut and it's stable. So that's really good. I know you've introduced a mandatory fixed version in JIRA. Why do you need the correct fixed version on JIRA issues? What's the reason?
Yeah, I hope you can still hear me. I've got this helicopter hovering here, but yeah, we've really tried to make JIRA one-to-one with Git. So that's kind of how you should think about it. So if you got a release branch cut, the equivalent fix version should, so until you actually have the release branch there, the fix version is not going to be available. So we try to keep the two in sync at all times, and we need to kind of do that manually because we don't have a proper system supporting the two. So fix version should only be set when you merge the issue, and at that point when you merge it, that transition will enforce the fix version field. So it's key that the fix version field is not populated before merge, and this is something that happens every now and again. I think less frequently now, because then you see that issues are part of a release, but if it's not merged, it can't very well be part of the release. So it's only when you merge it to dev core you should set the fix version to keep the delta 100% accurate and Git always in sync with JIRA.
Thank you, Magnus. So does that mean that every issue needs a fixed version?
Every issue that involves a code fix. So we've cleaned this up a bit because it's been a little bit confusing, I think. Now there's a not applicable fix version, which comes handy if you do, for example, a content fix in SIT environment to solve something. Then you don't need to apply, or you shouldn't apply a fix version because essentially you haven't committed any code or merged any code to the release branch. So again, I mean, it comes back to the Git being always in sync with JIRA. If there's no code fix, no fix version.
Cool. No, that's interesting. So, and another point I think is kind of getting your goat is like, why is it important to move a JIRA issue to accepted?
Yeah, to make sure that the team has tested and accepted all the stuff that goes into the release on the SIT environment. And it's important to distinguish between the stuff that the Nordics and the PO need to accept and the stuff that the team needs to accept. And yeah, well, I mean, we touched on that a little bit. Yeah, I think it's something that we're really becoming better at. And everybody knows that when it comes to the scope of the release, everything needs to be accepted. Team needs to accept their stuff, and the PO business owners needs to accept their stuff.
Well, why wouldn't we get the Nordics UAT team to start testing the QA issues? Why wouldn't that be the case?
Yeah, I think essentially it's about, I mean, who's most qualified to test the defect, and for the most part, it's the person who raised it. I mean, who has the in-depth knowledge to verify that it's fixed and working in the SIT environment. So whoever reported it essentially should accept it.
Cool. That's interesting. So I think we're wrapping up now. This is a really good question. I think I've got one last question. So I think you've changed a couple of the resolution fields. So why is it important to get the right resolution? But why can't we just use code fix for everything?
Yeah, it's great for us to be able to see what changes goes into the code base and to keep JIRA in sync with Git. But it's also good from a metric standpoint to see, I mean, what kind of problems are we facing in the release branch? Are we facing mainly configuration issues? Are we facing problems with the content? And to see what quality issues are we having in relation to the code. And especially now that we've also put a bit more process around post-release defects, it's very valuable to see how many code-related post-release defects we find to see if that we're improving our quality in our fortnightly releases.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been
actually, there's one thing I forgot to mention. I think that's yeah. I think maybe we should take a few words on effects for version 2, because I think that might be, we've started to use that a lot more structured the past few months. And I think we're on a good way there. So when you do find a defect, it's important, if you find it in production, you need to know which release is running in production. So you choose, for example, right now you would choose 3.7 because that's what's in production. And then you pick the corresponding environment. And if you find a defect in in SIT, you pick the release branch that's deployed to SIT in the corresponding environment. And also, if you do test issues in several environments, which we really want people to do, especially going from lower environments. So if you find a defect, for example, in the team environment, it's good to, this typically a release branch cut at all times. So it's good to test that if that defect is present in the release branch and in the SIT environment, and if it's present in production. So then you need to select the effects for version accordingly. So you would essentially select multiple effects for versions. If it affects 3.7, that's in production. If it affects 3.8, that's in SIT. And if it affects the integration branch, so you would then pick 3.7, 3.8, and integration branch as effects for version, because you've tested them in all three environments. And then you would also pick 3 environments in the environment field, so that the environment usually matches up with effects for version. Because, I mean, as you know, a defect could be in integration branch and in the release branch and in production. And the more environments we can verify in, the better.
And the best thing will be when it's fixed, and then have the fixed version in whatever version it's been fixed in. So that's a really good piece of advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks a lot for your time. Hopefully all the people find this really useful, and I'll speak to you soon.
All right. Ciao. Thanks.